Hey, good morning. Today I'm going to show you how to do a test cross and then also show you some incomplete dominance. Okay, so what you do with a test cross is you're actually trying to figure out what the genotype of the parent is. Like it'll tell you that it's black, but you're trying to figure out if it's big B black or homozygous black or big B little b heterozygous black, as just an example. And anytime you do a test cross, you want to cross it with a recessive individual. So if you're trying to figure out the genotype of a black rabbit, for example, you're going to cross it with a white one. Usually white is the recessive color. Not all the time, but the majority of the time, because it can accept all colors. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples here. So if a red flowered plant is crossed with a white flowered plant, the offspring that it produces are red and white. What is the phenotype of the red flowered plant? Well, that's actually a bad question. That should say what is the genotype of the red flowered plant, because we already know it's red, right? Okay, so the only way to have the white one would be little r, and the two ways to have a red one, since it's dominant, would be big R or big R, little r. So if you notice, I already have two Punnett squares waiting over here, because what we have to do is cross little r times big R and big R little r. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put a little, well, not in white, that won't work. I'm going to put a little r here, a little r here, and a little one here, and a little one here. That's our homozygous recessive individual. Okay, then for this Punnett square, we're going to cross it assuming the offspring is homozygous red dominant, and then here we're going to cross it with the heterozygous one. Okay, so for all of these up here, you're going to get the heterozygous condition. Okay, this is supposed to pull for me. Here it goes. All right. Okay, now tell me why this one is actually not possible for it to be the genotype of the red one, because what color would all of these offspring be? Right, they would be red. So we know already that this red flower has to be heterozygous for red, otherwise we wouldn't get any white ones. Okay, so we'll end up with that here, and then this one will be, come on, this one will be white, and then this one will also be white. Okay, so the answer is we know that the genotype of this red flower has to be big R, little r. Otherwise, we wouldn't end up with any white offspring. Okay, so let's try another one. Someone who is blonde haired married a man who is brown haired. They have 4 children, all of whom have brown hair. So what is the likely genotype of the man? Now, we can't prove this 100%, guys, so that's why it says likely. Okay, so we know that our little blonde-headed chickie here should be little b, right? Because blonde hair is recessive. All right, our brown-headed man could be homozygous for brown or heterozygous for brown. Okay, so remember what we're going to do. Let's put our blonde-headed chickie in here first, okay? Because we know she has no other options. All right, and then we got to do one Punnett square for homozygous. So I'm going to do that one here. This will be a lot easier if I had a touch screen like some of you guys. And then we're going to put the heterozygous one here. Okay, so now I'm going to do some clicking and dragging. So all of these, if the only thing the mom can contribute is a little b, and the only thing the dad can contribute is a big B, that means every single one of these are going to be heterozygous. Okay, so I'm going to leave that like that instead of dragging all 4 of them in there. All right, now this one, on the other hand, the only thing the mom contribute is the little b, so all of these are going to have little b's in them. Okay, but since the dad has the dominant gene and the recessive gene, we end up with a 50-50 split. Okay, so since the question said they have 4 children, all who have brown hair, then we have to assume that the dad has the homozygous dominant genotype, since all of the children would be brown-headed. Okay, now remember, this is just probability because he could still have this genotype and end up with all brown-headed children, right? It's just a matter of probability. But more than likely, he would have the homozygous dominant trait. Okay, all right, I'm going to skip this one for interest of time, okay? Let's move on to incomplete dominance. So far when we've done dominant and recessive, it's either this or that, right? Tall or short, green or yellow, square or round, red or white, etc., etc. With incomplete dominance, it is a phenomenon that occurs when one is not more powerful than the other. So in other words, the traits will blend. So the way that I have seen these on the EOC before, you may have a capital R for red and a capital W for white. So see how that is way different than what we've done so far, because we've always had a capital letter and a lowercase letter, and they've always been the exact same letter. Okay, now even if it's not printed like this, it might be printed like this. So color, right? Color is red, color is white. I've even seen it like this, R and then R prime. So if you have an R, that would be red, and if you have R prime, that would be white. So you guys know when traits blend, red and white make pink. Okay, so that's just an example of incomplete dominance. Many of human traits are incompletely dominant. So as a simple example, if you have someone who has perfectly straight hair and then their husband or wife has really curly hair, a lot of times the children are born with wavy hair or something in between the straight and the curly. Okay, so that happens actually quite often. Okay, more so than us completely dominant or completely recessive. All right, so an example of this in the plant kingdom, these are called 4 o'clock flowers. They come in red and white, and they are incompletely dominant. So that means when you mix a red one and a white one, you end up with something completely different. Okay, so we would use big R for red, big W for white, and then what happens a lot of times is you end up with flowers that are pink, like these two here. So red parent, white parent, pink offspring. Okay, so you're going to do these crosses just like you normally would. They just look a little different because there's 2 capital letters. Okay, so let's try just a couple of these. Homozygous red. So guys, basically that means red, red, correct? That's homozygous. And then homozygous white. This time we're going to use a W and a W. All right, so all you have to do is put them in the box, just like we've been doing, and what you'll see is that they will all end up like RW, or you can put WR, it doesn't matter. So this would be 100% pink. Okay, and that's kind of what you would expect if you cross a red and a white under normal circumstances. Okay? All right, so now let's try pink times pink, because a lot of people, when they see a problem like this, they would just do some P's up here and some P's over here and then end up with a bunch of pink ones. Okay, that's not actually what happens. What was pink over here was RW, right? So that's what we need as the genotype here. RW times RW. Okay, so then when you start putting them in there, you get something very different. This one's going to be RR. We're going to have 2 that are RW, and then 1 that is WW. So 25% of your offspring should be red, 50% should be pink, and 25% should be white. Okay, I'm going to give you some problems to practice in a little while. This happens with a horse called a Palomino horse. If you don't know what they are, you should look them up. They are absolutely beautiful. Okay, all right, let's try one more, a pink times a red. Well, remember, pink was RW, okay, red was RR. So when you do these crosses here, RR, RR, RW, RW. So it's kind of like what you would expect, I would think. 50% of your offspring should be red, 50% of your offspring should be pink. Okay, so that's incomplete dominance. I'm going to give you guys some practice problems on incomplete dominance with some of these flowers and the Palomino horses. All right, and then that should be it for today. Hope you guys have a great day.